Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. Today's guest is Susan Bortone, the founder and CEO of Noble Talent Group. She's a powerhouse in the recruitment world, helping brands scale and find the right talent. But her path to entrepreneurship wasn't exactly a straight line. After 15 years in the industry, she faced a major setback that so many of us can relate to. She was laid off during the pandemic, but instead of letting that define her, she took it as a sign to bet on herself. She launched her own firm with a mission to bring more transparency and affordability to recruitment. She's here to share that journey from being laid off to leading her own company and the mindset shift that made it all possible. So, Sue, thank you very much for joining us on FailCraft. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So, let's get started. Your story in launching Noble Talent Group, it's incredibly inspiring, especially because it started with a moment that would knock most people down. You were laid off during the uncertainty of COVID after 15 years in the industry. So can you take us back to your rock bottom moment? What did that feel like for you?
Yeah, I think being in the recruitment industry was really tough during COVID, when everybody's laying off people, instead of hiring. And so, like so many other people in the industry, I was part of the layoffs. And, I think I've always been that person that refuses to fail, right? I think there's kind of two mindsets. There's the approach of like you take that moment to kind of let yourself go through the process, right, of understanding what's happening and taking that moment to reflect and for yourself. But then you really have to just figure out what's your best path forward. And for me, I've always been that person that has the entrepreneurial spirit, right? I've always wanted to go off on my own and do my own thing, but the timing was never right. When you're working full time and you have kids and you have a mortgage and there's so many things that are tying you to needing that paycheck week after week, that it's hard to take that leap of faith. And I kind of took the opportunity to, my first step was enrolling in some online classes. I found Harvard University was doing online classes, so it was a great time to enroll because I had the flexibility, right? I was laid off. I didn't have to try to work it around my 9 to 5. So
Mm.
taking some of those classes in change management was my first step, and then just reaching out to people that I've spoken to, people in my network that I thought might be looking to hire, and we had an opportunity to fill a copywriter role, and it all started with that. I set up an LLC and I figured, you know what, let me just try this, and we were able to fill it quickly and then started getting momentum and talking to other clients and, really just realizing that you have to get over the mountain, right? And whether it's being laid off or, any other setbacks in life, you have to go from one side of the mountain to the other where, there's that light at the end of the tunnel. And you have the option of climbing over the mountain, or going through the mountain, and going through the mountain is the quickest and the easiest way there. So how are you going to get yourself there as quickly as possible? And for me, it was a mindset. It was a mindset shift of, okay, I can't take this setback as a failure, but I'm going to take it as my opportunity to get to the other side of this mountain as quickly as possible and really, focus my energy on getting to that thing that I wanted, which was starting Noble to help other businesses and help other people, achieve their goals by finding the opportunity that they wanted by growing their teams.
All right. So, Sue, what was the first moment you decided that you're not going to look for another job, but rather you're going to build your own?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, like I mentioned, getting that opportunity to work on one search, right? And it's just that first step and getting that first chance. And when I was able to fill that job, that was my moment of like, okay, let me see who else I can reach out to. There's got to be somebody else out there that needs my help. There's got to be other people that I can talk to that can then help open other doors for me. And I actually, when I was kind of first starting out, I had gotten another job offer because I was still having some of those conversations. And I kind of realized that I don't want to go back to where I was. I was proud of what I was building. I was creating a company that really makes it more affordable for smaller agencies and brands and startups to be able to hire the talent they need and making it transparent. I was building something that I was proud of. I didn't want to go back to a big recruiting firm where we have really high fees and markups and we're not supporting the smaller brands, the independent agencies that are trying to scale. So, for me, it was more about, okay, let me stay true to my mission and building what I believe in and, building something that I'm proud of and I can stand behind rather than focusing on something that I already knew, and it's kind of like the definition of insanity where you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And so, to me, going back to another big firm, was just it was something that I've already done and it didn't work with my values and what I believe right now.
All right, all right. So, was there any fear or doubt you had to overcome in those early days when you were making that transition from employee to founder?
Percent. I think that if there isn't fear and doubt, I think, you are the one in the million with that, right? I think that's usually the thing that holds us back, right? Uh, and I think for me, that's the thing that drives me, is that knowing that I have to make this succeed, that I am on the hook for, as an adult, we have bills, we have things that we have to, take care of, and you need to make this work in order to be able to sustain that. And I think, for me, there's always those peaks and valleys. I think for every founder there is. Um, but you have to believe in yourself, and now that I've started building a team, believing in my team and what they're capable of, I think is so important because it's really easy to have those setbacks. Even now that we're a couple of years into the company, 2025 was a really volatile year. It started out, we went into the year really strong, and then with uncertainty the first half of the year, people weren't hiring. So you have to just keep that momentum, and if anything, keep pushing further and really focus in those times. I think also being able to listen to your clients and what they need. So we took that opportunity of 2025 when people weren't hiring people the first half of this year to also introduce global solutions because people were hiring people that are near shore in Latin America and these other markets. And so that was a service that we added because we were hearing that in the market. So I think it's really important to be able to listen to your clients and what they need as you try to grow and scale and sustain.
All right, all right. So you are Harvard certified in, change management. So how did that formal knowledge compare to the real life experience of managing such a massive personal change? So did theory hold up?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's just you know, the ability to have those checkpoints along the way, right? And that's something that when you're changing a huge corporation, it's not going to go from A to Z right away. So having those check-ins and where do you need to refocus or reset to make sure that you're getting to where you're going. And I think that's very similar to looking at what we did this year even with offering the global solutions, right? And it was that checkpoint of like, okay, our normal service offerings aren't really the focus right now because people are pivoting into more near shore, finding more affordable solutions. So that was something that, as a checkpoint, we kind of added that in to make sure that we're continuing to move forward. We also lean into our advisory services because we don't just do recruitment, but we do advisory. So that's something where for me, a lot of that comes into play with the change management, and helping kind of coach clients to where they're going, whether that's increasing their headcount, restructuring their headcount, or reducing their headcount because of how the market is.
All right. So, did the experience of being laid off shape or change the way you approach recruitment today?
That's a good question. I think as a whole, I would say that not necessarily my lens, but I think kind of the lens on layoffs is that it's just become so much more acceptable. I think it used to be such a taboo where if somebody had been laid off in their career, they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to admit it. It's a blow to the ego, and it's something that people take very personally. And after having especially spoken to people that, were on HR teams of massive corporations where it wasn't even about a person, it was literally a computer just spits out a bunch of numbers. And if that, employee number happens to be your number, you were on the list, right? So it's actually a very mechanical thing. Um, I think people have now come to accept it and become more comfortable. It's never easy, but it's something that, when you're 6 months, you're a year removed from it, you don't feel like it's, a setback necessarily in terms of your career and your ability to keep moving forward. I think it's something that's kind of become part of the norm in society, unfortunately. Um, but, it is something that people now know how to navigate a little bit more and accept.
All right, all right. That's really interesting. So let's talk about the hustle mindset. So how do you balance the hustle required to start a business with the need to avoid burnout, especially also being a mom?
Yeah. I think it's a different hustle when you're working for yourself. There's an immediate return on it, right? Because you're growing your company, you're growing your brand, and you're continuing to grow a vision, a legacy. And I think for me, like, you know, we were talking about it the other day where I used to dread Mondays, right? Because I knew I had to sit at a desk and make like 80 calls. And I think the industry has changed in that sense, right? Like we're not picking up the phone and cold calling people anymore. But I think also I love what I do and I now have the opportunity to do that for myself. So I look forward to Mondays where, I get to help people get jobs or get to help people, grow their companies. And I'm like, oh, what's waiting for me in my inbox? So I think you have to be a self-starter to be an entrepreneur, like those 2 things go together if you wanna be successful. But I think for me, even having a recruitment team, I know that they depend on me. And if my hustle isn't there and I'm not gonna drive the business forward, then they're not gonna be successful. They're not gonna be able to continue to grow and make money. So I think for me, it's just knowing that people depend on me and knowing that I'm building something amazing and I want everybody to know about it. Um, and really wanting to get that word out.
All right, all right. So for the person, say there's a person right now listening who now like who has just faced a layoff or a major career setback and feels like the rug has been pulled off from under them. So what is the first most important or most practical step you'd advise them to take to start reclaiming their power?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was taking those classes, right? And they can be one-day workshops. There's so many amazing things. Like there's edX that has free classes that you could take or nearly free classes from some really big name universities too. So for me, it was that, right? Like, what do I want to do and where do I want to grow? And take this as an opportunity to use that time to gain a new skill or to sharpen a skill and grow personally. And then the other thing is from the classes standpoint, it also helps you fill the gap because sometimes that gap might be a few weeks or it could be a few months. So it gives you something to put on your resume and shows that you're looking to continue to progress and move yourself forward, um, just by taking those classes and filling that void. Mhm.
Okay, all right. So that was a very insightful response. So after navigating, that pivot and then building Noble Talent Group into what it is today. So I like to ask, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
Yeah. Um, to me, it's continuing to grow and do more. It's getting to a point where, even for me, like if somebody refers us to a client, for me that's success because that means that we've done something great for somebody and we've gained their trust and we've built a relationship. So continuing to grow and be able to help more people, to me means success. I love the recruitment space because we get to actually change lives, right? We get to help people open a door that they might not have opened before, or help somebody, an entrepreneur who's just starting out and doesn't have the same reach where, if you're Nike, everybody knows about you and they're applying to you. If you're a little startup, they don't. So being able to connect them with the people they need to be able to grow and continue to bring their visions to life. For me, that's what success looks like. It's not necessarily a number, but it's, just the amount of people that we get to help and impact.
Wow, wow. That's a really interesting meaning for being successful there. All right, so for finally, for our listeners who are looking to hire or maybe searching for their next role, so no, and perhaps want to connect with you and Noble Talent Group. So where is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so we are Noble Talent Group. And then you can also find me at Sue Narelle Bortone on LinkedIn. So our site is nobletalent.group. And our email is info@nobletalent.group.
All right, I'll be sure to link those to the show notes. So, Sue, it's been such a valuable conversation with you, and I am really excited and honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It was great to be here. I appreciate the time.